A coalition of migrant truckers is suing California to keep their commercial driver's licenses. The Trump administration pushed states to claw them back, saying at least 8 people were killed this year alone in crashes involving big rig drivers who entered the country illegally.
These rules are not made up by the Trump administration. I didn't make them up. These are rules that are set up to make sure our roads are safe. And so if you can't speak English, if you haven't gone through the proper training courses, you shouldn't be behind the wheel of a big rig. These are 80,000-pound vehicles that can be incredibly dangerous when things go wrong. The problem is that you had Joe Biden that let tens of millions of people into the country, and then you have liberal governors who said, well, they got to work.
Well, how the tables have turned, because it looks like Gavin Newsom is now getting sued by the illegal aliens. Yes, you heard that correct. You're probably thinking, what the heck is going on here? We'll explain that for you today, because this all ties back into the very story of migrant truck drivers that we discussed many times throughout the year, whereby many different blue states, but especially California, over the course of the Biden administration, were giving out a bunch of CDLs to Biden-era illegal aliens, mostly coming from India. If you know anything about India, there's basically no traffic laws there. And so the logical consequence has been, over the past year or so, we've seen many different American citizens in states as far away as Florida get killed by commercial truck drivers who have no clue what they are doing. Well, this year, the Trump administration, controversially, quote unquote, implemented some fairly common sense reforms stating that you have to be an American citizen or green card holder and be proficient in English and know what the heck is going on the highways of our country in order to drive a big rig truck. This is a move that's been massively resisted by blue states, especially California. But in the end, we did tell you the story of how the threats of federal funding and lawsuits ultimately got Gavin Newsom a couple of months ago to somewhat comply with that new federal regulation.
In many states like California, it's illegal for police to even ask a driver about their immigration status, including those in commercial trucking, which is why the administration is now cracking down using ICE, Border Patrol, Homeland Security to target trucking companies and illegal migrants issued CDLs, many from California, where officials blame Governor Newsom for issuing thousands of CDLs to undocumented drivers. In just the last week, ICE has arrested 101 undocumented drivers from India, Mexico, Colombia, Uzbekistan, Ukraine, Nicaragua. You can see in this there, Georgia, Venezuela, El Salvador, and Honduras. Now, the 3 that you see here, they are from India. We are told they crossed illegally during the Biden years and got work authorization papers good for 5 years. California gave each one a CDL, contrary to laws that saying only U.S. citizens and permanent residents are eligible.
Well, now in response, we're seeing the illegal alien truck drivers who are set to either lose their CDLs or not receive them to begin with, suddenly up in arms, trying to sue the state of California, saying that it's unjust. Although, guys, if we were to be completely honest about it, I'm not sure that this is a huge defeat for Newsom. I think this is all kayfabe. It's exactly what he wants, right? They're probably going to try to lose this lawsuit on purpose so that way the illegals can still get the CDLs, right? Don't be surprised if they pick the worst attorney in all of California to defend the state. They're going to put Kamala Harris, right? Or some total DEI lawyer who's going to be like, oh, I don't know what's going on. And then the judge is going to say, okay, illegal aliens, you win. It's insane. But anyways, we'll bring you this full story here today because it is objectively kind of funny, but at the same time, I am deeply concerned over the fact that these illegal aliens who already have caused so much destruction on our roads are seeking to, they believe it's somehow their human or American right to do it again. Let's tell you about it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate it. And that said, here's the headline, first of all, from Fox News. Migrant truck drivers are suing the California DMV over canceled commercial driver's licenses. Well, that might be some good data to send over to ICE and immigration enforcement. But to make a long story short, the California DMV which it's worth noting, they didn't do this on their own, right? They only did this under political pressure from Sean Duffy and the Trump administration, is facing a lawsuit on behalf of nearly 20,000 immigrant truck drivers over the state's plan to revoke their commercial driver's licenses. This lawsuit is being brought by the Asian Law Caucus and Sikh Coalition, along with the law firm Weil, Gottschall, and Manges LLP, filed a lawsuit on Tuesday in an effort to stop the California DMV from canceling the CDLs, which the complaint says would result in, quote, mass work stoppages starting January 5th, 2026. Well, that's kind of the point, is it not? I mean, let's just be real about this, folks. First of all, oftentimes when it comes to immigration debates, you hear this rhetoric from the left that, oh, who's going to fill those jobs? But no, in reality, as many in the comment section can probably attest to, commercial truck driving is an extremely common profession in the United States. Okay, the idea that we somehow need foreign labor to be executing these jobs is ridiculous. It is the primary majority profession, and I believe the most common profession, I guess I should say there, in like the majority of U.S. states. And by the way, even if it does create some type of supply chain shortage, which it won't, right? That's a myth. No, these are scumbag trucking companies who are trying to break or undercut the law in order to pay cheaper. But even if that were true, I would still sit here and say, looking at all the crashes we've gotten from CDL drivers who clearly just like don't understand English, they don't know what they're doing. Folks, I'd rather, frankly, deal with economic disruption than be killed, right? than lose my own life because of this so-called labor shortage. But anyways, take a listen here for those full details.
November 6th, the California DMV notified 17,299 immigrant drivers and business owners that their non-domiciled CDLs, that's commercial driver's licenses, would be canceled on January 5th, 2026. That's just days from now due to an error with the expiration date of the licenses. A similar letter was sent to an additional 2,700 drivers in December, informing them that their licenses would be canceled in mid-February. For all nearly 20,000 immigrants, the DMV intends to cancel their commercial licenses without any affording opportunity to obtain a corrected license or to contest the cancellation, the lawsuit reads. But let's remember the deadly results of allowing illegal immigrants not only to cross the border and be released in the country, but then to give them work authorization and commercial driver's licenses to operate 18-ton trucks, 18-wheelers on our roads. Here's a list we can show you going all the way back to this summer in Florida. The illegal immigrant trucker killed 3 attempting to make that illegal U-turn. And back in October, another killed in a truck driving incident. In California, they've seen a number of incidences, to include in Ontario, where 3 were killed. And just last month, you had in Oregon another horrific incident that killed 2 after a truck jackknife. And then just weeks ago in Tennessee, a Chinese national kills 1 by causing a deadly multi-vehicle pileup. In Washington State, you had an illegal immigrant trucker failed to decelerate and killed 1. And you know what's crazy is in those last 2 incidences, the Chinese illegal truck driver and the Indian illegal truck driver, those crossed in 2023 in Lukeville, Arizona.
Yeah, well, as I've always said, this is an issue that really should be so common sense, because obviously there's an immigration angle attached to it. Certainly illegal aliens shouldn't be in our country to begin with. But even if you're the biggest woke, liberal, illegal alien lover, there's also just a very basic angle to this where it seems like, gee, maybe, yeah, people who don't know how to drive, first of all, shouldn't be driving, but on top of that, not being given 18-wheeler killing machines. I mean, is it that hard, liberals, to ask, oh, you're racist, you're just being xenophobic? No, we don't want to die on the roads. And after all, what do you think is going to happen when people, first of all, oftentimes are coming from countries, you notice a pattern here, that don't really even have traffic laws to begin with, okay? India there being a prime example. That's where we've seen most of these migrants from, but there's another one, this Borko Stanvokic guy who's probably from Eastern Europe, you know, not really the best over there either. This one is Chinese, probably doesn't even speak English, right? If you can't read the road signs. By the way, many of them just got here. They got here in 2023. After all, it does take time in general to probably, right, acclimate to driving in a brand new country. They just said, no, let's just instead give them big CDLs, and then it's just a total mystery as to why oftentimes they cause so many crashes, because they're not used to traffic bottling up, or they just don't understand how rules or laws work, and they make illegal U-turns and all this different stuff, failing to decelerate. I mean, it just is so straightforward. But apparently, according to the migrant truck drivers and these so-called like Asian and Indian civil rights groups, no, we're actually supposed to feel bad for the drivers, that no longer will they have the ability to, first of all, illegally migrate to the country and then undercut opportunities for all of the American citizens and endanger people and kill people because, don't you know, they need to be making their money. And it's like, actually, that's the point, right? We don't want you to be coming into this country and using it as a big giant grift for remittances and then endangering lives in the process. But anyways, take a listen to their excuse as to why they're trying to bring this lawsuit.
Hey, Julie, according to the lawsuit, thousands of immigrant truckers face losing their commercial driver's licenses and therefore their livelihoods as soon as January 5th, in the wake of the announcement from California officials that around 20,000 CDLs would be revoked because their expiration dates went past the date the drivers were legally allowed to be in the U.S. That decision was a response to pressure from the Trump administration after a series of deadly accidents involving immigrant truckers, including one in Florida where a driver who was in the U.S. illegally made a U-turn on a turnpike and caused a crash that killed 3 people. Excuse me. Organizations representing the affected truckers, many of whom are Sikhs from the Punjabi region between India and Pakistan, have now filed a class action lawsuit arguing that the California action is based merely on a clerical error that mismatched expiration dates and immigration information. The Sikh coalition saying, quote, "These drivers have spent years anchoring their lives to these careers only to now face potential economic ruin through no fault of their own. They deserve better, and California must do better." The lawsuit is asking the Alameda County Superior Court to halt, at least temporarily, the license cancellations. Julie?
All right, Jonathan Hunt, thank you so much.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to point out they're just simply wrong about that. It's not a clerical error. It's actually directly in accordance. We cover this, by the way, on the channel. The reason why they're revoking these 20,000 or so CDLs with new federal guidelines, as they explain here. The DMV is required to set the expiration date for a CDL given to an immigrant on either the same day or before the expiration of the driver's work authorization or legal presence documents, according to the lawsuit. However, the lawsuit alleges that the DMV letters violated California procedure, which would require the department to either cancel the license without prejudice or change the expiration date. Very interesting how they're suing the state of California here and not the very federal government who set in these new regulations. We'll come back to that in a second. But, it goes on here to say for all 20,000 immigrants, the DMV intends to cancel their commercial licenses without affording any opportunity to obtain a corrected license or contest the cancellation, the lawsuit reads. Well, the very reason for that is, of course, because of the fact that in November, after a heated back and forth between the federal government and California, the DOT announced the Golden State was planning to revoke 17,000 non-domiciled CDLs. That is the reason why, right? So again, it's not just because of some clerical error or whatever. Sure, I don't know if they're violating California law or not. California law probably mandates that every illegal alien be given a CDL, but this is about federal law. Gavin Newsom's office pushed back on the DOT's assertion that his state admitted to illegally issuing the licenses. However, according to the lawsuit, notices were sent to more than the reported 17,000 drivers. So, in other words here, right, what's happening is despite the fact that Gavin Newsom is claiming he never broke the federal law to begin with, he absolutely did. He tried to revoke a bunch of these CDLs to cover his own tracks. And then now the migrants whose CDLs have been revoked are trying to sue Gavin Newsom. Now, Gavin, I have to say, if you wanted to avoid this whole scandal, all this outrage, all this back and forth, there would have always been a very simple solution to it, which is you should have never been giving these people CDLs to begin with. I know, right? Hot take. That's crazy. But essentially, there you have it, right? The lawsuit then further notes that the cancellation of CDLs has a far-reaching impact beyond the drivers themselves, saying that the drivers play an indispensable role in our local and national economies. Oh, really, do they? Wait, we wouldn't have truck drivers if it were not for illegal aliens from India. Did you know that before Harmeet Singh, whatever his name was, and all these Biden-era illegal aliens showed up in 2023? Actually, it's like when the colonists showed up in sub-Saharan Africa. The Americans hadn't invented the wheel yet, right? Much less the 18-wheel truck. We needed all those guys you saw on the screen to come over here and enlighten us and show us actually how you can haul cargo around, right? Until they showed up, Americans, no one was driving trucks. Everyone was carrying cargo on their heads, on their backs, by horse-drawn carriages. And now here they are providing essential services that communities rely on every single day, including transporting food, driving children to school. Yeah, that's another thing actually we should point out about this. People forget CDL. They think it's just about commercial truck driving. But no, these people are also driving school buses, okay? So the very same illegal aliens you see causing all these deadly crashes, just keep that in mind. They're also transporting your kids to school. I don't know. That sounds to me like a pretty strong argument against your lawsuit, but anyways, and delivering manufactured goods. The sudden loss of their... So basically, as you heard, even in that clip, the argument here they're trying to make, first of all, is that, well, there's going to be a huge economic loss on their own parts, right? Their livelihoods are in danger, to which I say, yeah, that's the entire point. Yeah. You shouldn't be an illegal alien. I know it sucks. Have you considered going to another country, right? If you're going to sit here and say, oh, America no longer has opportunities for illegal aliens like us. Yeah, that's the point. Go somewhere else. You don't even have to go back to the home country. Just go somewhere else, okay? You want to pick some liberal country now that will be super tolerant to your extremely dangerous commercial truck driving? Feel free to do so. That's not our issue. But yes, part of the entire point of this is not only do we want to make roads safer for Americans, we also want to make the salaries and opportunities better for the potentially, right, millions of American citizens who are also truck drivers. Yes, that's the entire point. So for first of all, not really shedding a tear about this issue. And last point I'd like to make here about the people who are bringing the lawsuit, it really just makes me beg the question as to why is it so often that these kind of woke activists on behalf of immigrant or minority populations, and I say this obviously as a minority myself, always feel the need to defend their absolute worst behavior, right? Because here you have people. I mean, you've seen the consequences it's had. You have a bunch of illegal aliens, oftentimes from India, and in this case, those are the people bringing the lawsuit, right? Who, yeah, again, driving in India is like, there's no rules to it. They come here, they endanger a bunch of people, including other Indians on the road, by the way, because that's how traffic and highways actually work. There's a lot of different people on them. And yet they're going to sit here and say, no, like we're going to defend the right of illegal migrants to kill people on the road. It's insanity, It's like, at what point I don't know. It's just a feeling I often have about this kind of stuff, right? Look within your group and say, hey, you guys who keep doing the bad stuff, whether it's like, committing crime or causing accidents on the road or whatever kind of, I guess, negative stereotype exists about, a certain group of people, if you're within that group, shouldn't you be looking around and saying, hey, don't act like the stereotype. And no, we're not going to defend you for doing stuff that makes the rest of us look bad. Because, personally, that's how I feel about it, right? I'm part East Asian. And yeah, I mean, when other East Asians do stuff that is just like, oh, either it's so stereotypical or it makes everyone else be like, oh, those freaking Asians, whatever, right? I don't like when other Asians do that stuff. I'm like, you're making us look bad. You know what I mean? Like, you wonder why so-called racism or xenophobia, all the things they're constantly crying about in regards to these issues. It's like, if you don't want that to be the case, for instance, right? If you don't want there to be this negative stigma around, say, Indian or Chinese or whatever, that there's a bunch of illegal truck drivers killing people on the roads, then don't stand up, don't defend the illegal truck drivers who are killing people on the roads. And genuinely, I think that a lot of people from outside the group would respect that, right? They would say, they would respect you if you said, we condemn this, we encourage our people to stop doing it. It's funny too, because I always get these leftists who say about me, oh, does he realize he's Asian? Does he think he's white or something like that? And it's like, no, I realize that I'm Asian and I present as Asian, which is exactly why I don't want to be associated with negative stereotypes, right? Because it's just the truth, If the average person, let's just say hypothetically, right, goes through their life having primarily negative experiences with Asian people, they're probably going to cast that onto me, and I actually don't want that to happen, which is exactly why, as I said, right, one kind of belief or thing pattern I do kind of feel in my head is like, well, when you see another person of your race doing something that makes the rest of your race look bad or creates a negative stereotype, you should condemn that person. You should be like, what are you doing? You're making us look bad, and that reflects poorly on me, and I that's not fair to me, right? Because I didn't do that, but that is the reality of the world, and like we shouldn't want that, right? So obviously, like there's negative driving stereotypes about Asians as well. And, I when I see another one who can't drive, I'm like, what are you doing? Right. But, it's just frankly, what I would say about this is like, yeah, if I were an Indian person, for example, I wouldn't want to be associated with these freaking crazy truck drivers either. But for whatever reason, the civil rights group, again, like feels the need to say, no, we're going to defend all of these people who are from the same racial group as us, who are breaking the law, undercutting American labor, and, not doing a good job killing people on the road. And then, if people start to create negative stereotypes about that stuff and associate it with a certain group of people, then you're going to cry racism. And it's like, well, if you didn't want that to happen, you should have actually condemned the negative behavior to begin with. I mean, does that make sense? I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. But anyways, that's just how I feel about it. But let me know your thoughts about this, guys, in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.